Excellent.
Category.
Yeah, I need to have a permit.
Go to the time. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Established forum. And looking down the list here, we are one shy of having all of our members present. We do have a quorum, and we expect the imminent arrival of Supervisor Price. Do we have any? I've done this a couple of times now. Do we have any preamble we need to talk about for being a hybrid meeting, or
only if we have a member who is participating remotely, but we don't have that.
We don't have that today. Very good. Well, then our first order of business after this call to order is approval of the agenda. Trust everyone's had an opportunity to take a look at it.
Postponement of the minutes. It's still late.
Minutes still, yes, we will get to that. We will get to that.
No, I'm just saying yes.
Oh, okay.
Move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Brief announcements by authority members. Nothing from the chair.
I have nothing today.
Just Bucky, I will be talking about it in the content. Thanks for taking point on the strategic plan work and doing the consolidation of input and all that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bill?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Waldo? Nothing. Okay, move right on. And let's take it to the public. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment? Raise your hand if you're connected thusly, and if you're on a phone line, then it's was it star
9
star 9, I think, to let us know you'd like to speak.
All right, Mr. Chair, we have one attendee remotely that has raised their hand.
Great. Let's hook up Mr. Maxwell and give him his 3 minutes to address the authority.
So we had a Verizon issue go out past 3 days. Scottsdale, that's been resolved, and we're also working on some couple of things. When time comes right, Mike's time to talk about it. Then everything's all set and done.
What's the beginning of?
We may have missed the beginning of what you had to say.
Sorry.
Verizon went out in downtown Scottsdale today. Everything's been resolved.
Oh, good. Well, that's great. How long was it out?
I think 3 days, right, Mike?
Yeah, 3 days outage. Verizon Wireless.
And then it's been they were updating 5G.
Scottsville Power.
They're updating their fund. You're supposed to update without breaking it, though. Anyway. Thanks for the report. Is there anybody else?
There are no additional hands raised.
I'll note for folks just listening in that Supervisor Price has joined us.
Apologize being late. I was finishing up another meeting.
We understood this. And all right, let's move on to approval of the minutes. We have no minutes to approve, and it's going to be quite a while until our next meeting. And I understand from the sources producing the minutes, be it at the end of January, sources producing the minutes, that the minutes are imminently going to be available. So I would ask that the authority approve the publishing of the draft minutes, noted as draft minutes, as soon as they're available, and then we'll vote on them at the next meeting and change them from draft to regular status. That way anyone in the community who wants to track the minutes will have them available. I so moved.
Second.
Any comments, discussion?
It's a good idea.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. So we don't have minutes, but we'll publish some stuff this week, at least with regard to one set of minutes, and the other minutes this week as well.
Absolutely.
Very good. So we'll have the September and the October minutes up by the end of this week. That's great. And that takes us into our.
And you want me to go ahead and do the same with the minutes from this meeting? Put them up as draft also, as soon as I send them out to the entire board?
I didn't propose that, but let me ask the board, how do you feel?
I think the normal course would be to wait.
Okay, look at it. It's just these have been delayed, so we'll treat that. So the answer is no.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
but that good question, Bill. Thank you. So that takes us into old business. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce again Richard Schulman from Brightspeed. He is the head of Virginia Government Affairs and a resident of Virginia. And he'll be going through a presentation for us to update us on 21. And we'll get there. We're being fortunate to have him here for the meeting in person. So good to see you, Rich. Thanks for coming out.
While we're passing those out, I'm going to try and be here in person for every meeting. I live in Short Pump, so it's an hour drive for me, really easy. And I'd rather be here in person. Kind of nice to be able to do that finally. For some of the folks that I did not meet from the board the last time, just a real quick on me. I did a career in the military. In 1996, I started in the telecom field working for AT&T. Worked ever since then in telecom and cable. I did about 15-year stint with Sprint / Embark / CenturyLink, and I retired in 2020 from the company. And so all my friends say, why in the world are you back working again? It's a great question. So part of it was when I left CenturyLink, I had a dozen states I was responsible for. I spent a lot of time in places like Albany. And so they said they wanted me to come back just to focus on Virginia. And they said this new company, Brightspeed, had a different philosophy than CenturyLink, which I was glad to hear. I had been done beating my head against a wall with CenturyLink for a number of years, to be quite frank about it. And but they said they were going to add additional people and money to work in Virginia to get things up to speed. And over the course of months and a number of conversations with the folks at the company, I decided that I believed them and I was going to come back and give it a try. So I think I was here at the last meeting. I probably hadn't been here more than a few weeks, probably had that deer in the headlight look. Hopefully have a little less of that going on today. Last week, I actually came out and spent the day doing a ride of the entire project areas from the border to the border, talking to some of the crews, seeing what was going on, trying to get myself very much up to speed on what is actually going on in each of these areas that we're working in, so that I'm a little better. And I talk to these guys every day, multiple times a day, about things that are going on. So anyway, that little bit about me. So I want to just tell you where kind of we are in the project at this point. I was very glad to see that Rosemont and Taylor's Gap have both launched, and construction is going on in the Murray Lane trench, that last section. There are two particular roads that I drove on that go north off of I think it's Fox Holly, and there were two of them that were, when I drove down those roads, particularly surprised to see very narrow dirt roads with lots of trees alongside them, and crews are out there digging by hand, working in some of the areas around the rock. So anyway, a lot going on up there. And then on the other big section, which we're generally calling Stony Point, we divided into the three tranches. Just from southeast going up is Eastham, then Stony Point, and then what I always knew is Bell's Store, but I've been around a long time. I didn't realize it had changed, and then I didn't realize it had changed a lot of years ago from a different name.
It's been at least 5 years since Bobby Bell.
Okay. Well, I don't feel quite so old. But anyway, that's kind of what we have called them, just because our engineers kind of, they know these areas, so they had these names that they've traditionally put on them. And also went over to Sismont, Campbell, those areas as well, get familiar with those. We've got a railroad crossing in there that's been an issue I've been working on. So I want to get in and see that railroad crossing as well. But anyway, you'll see things going on in all of these different areas. So it's not like we're concentrating just in one area and we've got everybody here. So, if there are boring that needs to get done, maybe boring needs to be done here and then over here. So we'll have crews over working in this other area as well. So there's lots of things going on in all of the different project areas, which I know kind of alerts people because they see somebody coming in with a boring machine and they're like, yes. I had one guy who stopped in his car and he was taking a picture from inside his car. And I think I saw a big smile on his face, and I'm sure he's going to ask, when are we going to get it? But, that was the initial boring that we were doing to get by some culverts and some roads that needed to get done so that they could come in, and I think that was Turkey Sag Road. And so anyway, they see that's kind of the first sign that you're seeing things that are happening there. The other one that I asked to talk about is that, yes, I'm sorry.
Is there to ask questions as you go? Or
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, related to that, that's expectation management with the community. How is Brightspeed then managing those expectations for those areas that are expecting, you know, the project to be implemented? How are we communicating that through you all? So
to your residents, to me, is the key part, because that was a lot of this corrective action plan is the old process. We were letting people get in and they were actually able to get install dates that were impossible. There was no way that they were going to happen. And then those dates kept moving. So this new process, we're not doing that anymore. So what we're telling people is wait to hear from us. When you see things going on, that's a good sign that things are happening. But like we set out in the plan, you need to wait until we tell you the site is launching before you can go in and place your order. I know that's frustrating for people because they're like, well, can you tell us when? Can you tell us when? But Rosemont's a good example. You know, that's the one that I'm most familiar with. It's a more recent one for me. We ran into some construction issues. And then when they went and did the testing part, they found a bad fiber. So they had to go in and re-splice some fiber in there. So all along, I'm looking at this and we're having dates and dates that we're missing. What I see there is, if I were a customer, I'd be disappointed. It's like, what are you doing? You know, so I think that, and that's why we went to this corrective action plan is we'll tell you as we're ready to launch, and we're going to try and give you as much time as we can on those launch dates so that people have maybe a couple of days of notice. Because I know people are literally sitting there at their computer ready to click the button to say submit their orders. But the idea is, don't submit an order. You don't need to show interest. You don't need to do anything until we're ready to launch. And then we'll tell you when we're ready to launch and you can be able to go from there. So I'm not even comfortable. I mean, obviously we've got to be done by all these by March 31st. But, you know, I'm telling people, you know, just keep an eye out. You can kind of tell when the construction is happening. When construction stops, that's probably when we're doing our testing. And it's not going to be too long after that we're going to be turning up the network there. So that's kind of the best I can do to explain it. So one of the pieces that I just want to alert folks to, because I think people are going to be seeing this as well, is, and I drove this last week, there's a section on Polo Ground Road that becomes Profit, right? And that section has both an aerial and an underground part. Now, that is the fiber that's feeding that whole project area. It's at capacity right now. So we've got to add additional capacity onto that, adding another fiber strand onto that. So you're going to see work, and that's not, some people ask, well, are you doing those projects along Polo Ground Road? No. Everything that we're doing in this is all to get to the Vatty project. It has nothing to do with anything else. We don't have any other private projects that we're doing that are distracting us from the Vatty project. 100% of the effort is here on Vatty. So you're going to see work going on above ground. I forgot which way it goes. I think maybe the beginning is aerial and then it goes underground later on. A couple of places, I think one place we crossed the railroad tracks to that narrow tunnel. And so you'll see a lot of work going on there. It's a pretty long extent of fiber that's going to have to go in there. And a lot of it is underground fiber too. As I was driving it, saw a lot of area where we're underground up there. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that's kind of outside the project area, but it's work that's got to be done to light up the project area.
And Mr. Henry, just to cover one communications aspect, right now, the new paradigm moving forward is that when a tranche is under construction, we email people in that project area to let them know that construction has started. Really, the biggest reason is to assure them that when they see those trucks going by, that's what it is. Because otherwise we'll start getting emails from people, including Mr. Jaquith, saying, what is this thing that is happening on my road? And at the point where Rich or someone else from Brightspeed tells us that orders are ready to be placed, we go ahead and take a few minutes to start entering in some random addresses from that project area to see if we can actually get to the point of placing an order. And that's when we email the same project area and let them know orders are ready to be placed. You can go ahead and put your orders in. We also provide a specific 1-800 number that they should use if they have any difficulties with placing their orders, as well as reminding them that at any point in time, they can email us so that we can escalate with Brightspeed.
And we cover these in the webinars as well each month as well. And we got, I think this last one had pretty good participation on there. So we go over this process every single time, a little briefly, but at least so folks understand what the process looks like. Updates, here's some number updates. The one that's missing, so it's always that catch. I mean, we'd love to update this morning to let you know, like Rosemont, we've got some orders in Rosemont doing well there. So you don't see that on there, but we just didn't have time to put that on there today. I forgot what the number is, but it's pretty good. Taylor's Gap is just kicking off. I actually looked in the box and saw the 12 wires that were there last week. So those numbers are doing well there. So it's 19% is still pretty early on, but I mean, those are generally pretty good. I mean, from what I see across the entire company, those are pretty good take rates that we're getting there. Pretty impressive.
I was a little confused. Some of the math doesn't seem to quite work on the take rates.
Okay.
For example, Jones Mill at the top, you got 30 ordered and there are 57 passings. That's clearly more than 50%. Anyway, the bottom of the total seems to work out just fine, but the individual numbers are a little sketchy in some
30
places.
of 50, what's 30 divided by 57?
I
2%.
checked to see if there was a transcription error and update the board if there was. But I believe that is what was reflected in the report that we received.
Okay, we'll take a look at that,
Just
figure out why the numbers.
Take a look at the spreadsheet or whatever that's doing this. There's something inky in there. Like I said, the total works out. So
Yeah, like if you look at if there really are 6 passings and 5 orders, it should be.
actually 83% is spot on.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Great, we'll take a look at that.
So Taylor Gap just lit up.
Some of the others are.
Is that right?
Yeah.
About 3 weeks ago, Taylor's Gap.
So 233 potential homes, and in 3 weeks we've had 45 signups.
And that was current as of November 28th.
That's a number we'd expect to go north.
Sure.
All right, we'll move to the.
And this is just to reflect what we discussed already, that moving forward, any guidance that we give is going to be about when construction has started and then when orders can be placed.
Rich, if I may,
yes.
There's still some emails coming in. I know Mike's office and Jason see them, but there's still some what I would call punch list items that are out there.
Yes.
How are you? Is that something you're going to talk about, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So that's kind of part of going back to the corrective action plan. Really, to me, if you looked at what the core of the corrective action plan is, it was communication to residents. That was really, well, there are 2 problems. Things were not getting done in a timely manner, but worse than that, even they weren't being communicated well to customers. So if I wasn't going to show up, that's bad enough. But if I don't let you know that I'm not going to be able to show up, to me, that's doubles or triples the amount of problem that you've got. So we're trying to do both things: fix the systems and fix the processes, and then also do better at the communications. So that's why we went over in pretty good detail at the last meeting, this corrective action plan, which from what I'm hearing from our team on the ground is working really well. In most cases, and I say this, most cases, there are some neighborhoods we're looking at that maybe don't quite fit this as well, but we're able to do those temp drops and get people up and running right away, and then come in later on and bury that line in. So anyway, that is working much better than the process we had before of the buried drops and the people being able to pre-order and then we miss the dates, and so all that's gone. And I think from our perspective, we're seeing that things are working much better, much fewer issues, much less confusion for customers. So what we did in the corrective action plan that you all approved and DHCD approved is we hit these elements, getting rid of that buried site check, improving the communications, ensuring contractors address property restoration issues. And then what we included in the corrective action plan from last time was a spreadsheet that targeted all of the issues that were outstanding. And we've got a copy of that for you. And so what that does is it shows in red the items that have been updated, and then in yellow the things that are still open. There are a couple of these that are still on the open list that I looked at today, and I said I'm going to dig into some of these. There's one that deals with a customer who is going to need to get access. We've got to go across a neighbor's property, and there's a question whether the neighbor is going to allow the easement or not. So, I mean, that's going to be a tough one because I'm not sure off the top of my head what the solution is to get to a customer who's isolated and doesn't have an access point to get through. But anyway, there are a couple of those, and those are kind of where I'm going to be. I'm focusing on the bigger system issues, but then it's also reached kind of one of these one-offs that are just going to take somebody getting in and getting their hands a little dirty on it. That's what I'm going to do to get some of those resolved. So that's kind of the process that we're using there. So this is just a kind of a summary slide on that tracking document that we're constantly updating on what's out there so that you can see that as well.
Have we got any new escalations?
Oh, there are escalations that come in routinely. I mean, I don't think we haven't got, and I can't, to be honest with you, I can't foresee a point where you don't get anything that comes in. But you know, the number I think is getting, and these guys are probably the ones to ask whether things are, they seem to be getting better on the numbers on that. And then what I added in.
Yeah, I'll comment, Chair. I think there's been an uptick of people coming in and saying we ordered and are not receiving service. And the reason for that is that we have a number of people who used to be on Beam, and they had ordered fiber through, at the time it was CenturyLink. And since they didn't contact us until they knew they were losing Beam and had also placed an order for CenturyLink, now Brightspeed, we're seeing some of those orders come in on a weekly basis. And that may have subsided now that Beam has shut down their service.
It's not related to Body at all.
No, it's not related to Body. Although these folks were in the Body program and had placed an order and hadn't seen anything built to them yet. So this was the first time that they had contacted us, meaning Jason and myself. So we immediately escalate those to Brightspeed, and they're handling them, which is a positive. But it's, you know, it's unfortunate that in some cases there was a 2-month delay that we didn't know about because they never contacted us.
Tens of customers, scores of customers?
There's at least a half a dozen, no more than 12.
Since this document was originally submitted, I believe there were 16 additional escalations, and several of those did come in the last few days, that I think some of which were new, were completely new to us, and others were things that were on our radar but weren't at the point of escalation when we, until recently.
That's good. It's great to be processing, you know, the issues we had and dealing with those. But if the issues that are coming in are growing faster than the ones we're processing, then we need to take another look. But it sounds like that's not what's happening. So,
and related, not on here, but I'll just mention this. We had another area where, remind me, it's a phrase grant, not a VATI project, but another area where we had customers who came off of Beam and didn't have any ability to get into the system. The system was telling us when they tried to place orders that we were full. So Mike and Jason contacted me. We did a lot of real digging into it, and we found a device where we could open up some ports. And we did that, and we've got our first customer, hopefully tomorrow, who's going to be connected through that process. And once I know that that works and the workaround that we did is working, we'll have that option available for other folks as well. So just things we're trying to do to help out where we can.
take some pain away.
Yeah, exactly.
Chair Walsh, anecdotally, I would observe that I have seen fewer inquiries come to me that may be either the number of complaints is decreasing or the number of residents now are familiar with the BAAO office and are going more directly to them. So I defer to y'all on the numbers. I will just add as an interesting note, last Tuesday, I had a Zoom meeting with 2 members of White House administration talking about what do we need financially down here from the administration. And one of the things we talked about was you know, broadband and increasing the infrastructure, and that many of us are still challenged with the old copper wires, at which point we lost the connection. So I reconnected using my cell phone as a hotspot.
Yeah.
So those problems are still out there.
Nice way to make the point, though.
Have nothing to do with it. I recognize that's outside of body, but I would say at least I personally, as a supervisor, have been receiving fewer service inquiries. But again, that maybe more people are now more familiar with BAAO. But also maybe that we haven't had a major storm in a while, and so we're all concerned about as the winter progresses. Thank you. Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and hopefully not take us too far off track, but so we have to report on the voice side, so completely separate from broadband. We have reports that we have to make to the State Corporation Commission on how we're doing on the copper network, and there are 4 counties that include Albemarle where we have to make those reports. And I was on a call this morning. Our out of services have dropped by half, which was a really, really good number to see. Part of it is we've added a lot more people in, but there was also a big copper rehab program that was done in parts of the county and 3 other counties as well. And we're seeing the same thing there. Numbers are really getting better there. The really comforting part that I'll say is that as we're looking to the future, we're now looking at what are we going to do in other counties. So that was nice to see, instead of just somebody saying, well, we're done, we move on, that we're going to be doing that same thing in other counties while continuing to look at what's going on here in Albemarle and the other counties where we had really high numbers. So again, I'm sorry to get us so far off track, but as part of the response back, I think you all are due for an update back to DHCD. So I think I drafted a letter, and then I added what I thought were some narrative bullets from us that are in as an attachment to the letter, where I kind of hit the points that I've just been making about what I've been seeing going on so far. We are bringing additional crews in regularly, which is tremendously helpful for getting us back up. I think last week we had a boring crew that came up from Martinsville that came up just to kind of catch us up on some of the borings that needed to get done. So, you know, doing whatever we can to pull in the folks that we need to. So I went through and added bullets in for the narrative part of the response. What do you got next, sir, Jason?
Next is the body 22 update. So I think.
And that's all I had. I'm glad to answer any questions. So part of the rewards is when I said I would come here today, as I was driving here, I had a buddy of mine who's got season tickets and called me and says, hey, possible for you to make the game tonight? So I said, yeah, I'll be there. I just so happen I'm going to be in Charlottesville. So I'm going to be at the game tonight, so I may leave and not stay here for the whole meeting. So sorry.
I'm going to get close to 8 o'clock.
The prior practice under CenturyLink was to provide us with a schedule of here's when we expect things to happen. I see that that's not the case anymore. I appreciate that we were told, and I was fairly incredulous out loud in the meeting in September, we'll have, I was 1,200 something passings in Stony Point by beginning of December. And I said, I don't believe it. I don't see how it's possible. I appreciate why you might not want to make those prognostications anymore, but could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'll say that before we had the extension in place, you could not have said we're going to get this done in January. You couldn't have said that, right? We were required to have it done by then. So, you know, whatever dates they were given was probably based on what they thought they had to do in order to be done by the end of December to meet that original deadline. Having seen what happened in Rosemont, when I first came on board, I was pretty sure, I called these guys and says, Rosemont's going to be done by the end of the week. And that's the numbers that we had. We reached the end of the week, we weren't there. And that happened several times to us. And I said, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm not willing to say it's going to be a week or 2 weeks or a month when a project will be done, just because I don't know what we're going to face. You know, obviously they're going to all be done by March. If you drive around, you'll see the work is going on. It's not like folks are not working at it, but you know, these projects are going to take a couple of months to get completed.
I have to ask though, is it obvious that it would be done by March, or is that just back to, we have to be done by the end of December because that's the deadline then?
Yeah, we've been told by DHCD they're not extending the deadline. So every single day when I talk with the construction people, I'm dealing with like this railroad crossing issue. And I'm beating up on the right-of-way people and talking to CSX saying, we've got to be done by March 31st. And we've only got 20 homes that are past that railroad crossing. But we've got to have all those done by March 31st. So it's kind of one of those things where you don't want to, the consequences of not meeting it, I can't even fathom what they would be. We as Brightspeed want to do other VATI projects. We don't meet the deadlines. I can't see how the HCD would be willing to give us more money to do another project, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at these and I'm going to do a drive around early next week as well, the same thing. And I go back to the construction people and I say, hey, here's what I'm seeing here. Here's what I'm seeing here. I'm not the construction guy, but you know, is this, are we on track here? Do we need to bring in more people? And the folks are looking at that very, very carefully. And they've all committed, we're going to do what we said we're going to do.
So at what point will you be comfortable saying this is when Eastham will be ready? Is it when it's ready and no before? No,
well,
before?
I'll know, I'll have a pretty good idea when construction is getting completed.
Okay.
But what happens, for instance, is they'll go into a site to do something and they'll hit rock that they didn't plan on hitting. Now, I know these areas now, there's rock pretty much everywhere. This isn't like North Carolina where they just go and plow through sand. There's rock in lots of places. But we'll have a pretty good idea a week or two out that things are getting close on the construction phase and we're moving to the testing phase. And then if the testing phase goes well, it can be just a matter of a couple of days. If you find a bad piece of fiber and you got to go in and do some splicing, that maybe takes it out a week. So, you know, when we get close like that, I think I'm pretty good at being able to say we're getting ready. And in fact, I'll say to these guys, we're getting ready to launch, but please don't announce a launch until we're actually there, sure, because we don't want people going in and placing orders or trying to place orders. You actually can't place an order.
So it's possible that at some future meetings, we will be told this should be ready to launch in a week or two, but we would not be told in a month this will be ready because that's too far out.
That's right. That's correct. That's probably accurate. And most of the times, I mean, it just would be luck that I would come in here tonight and say, oh, by the way, I know that, you know, whatever, Eastham is going to launch next week because we've done all the construction. We're in the testing phase. I don't see any problems. You know, we're going to launch. Well, please don't let anybody online catch that. We're not talking about Eastham launching that quickly. But I mean, we want to give you as much notice as we possibly can. I just have been through a really bad situation with Rosemont, and I can't see how it changes where, you know, people lose trust in us because we're never able to make the dates that we've been putting out there when I know that it was unrealistic to put those dates out there in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but before we move on, we've got a report to provide to DHCD on the CAPA update. And you guys have prepared a letter. Does that look okay to you?
I looked it over and I didn't have any corrections. I thought it was
any objections to that letter from the board?
Not objections, but it might be helpful to, I know this document is proprietary, it's got customer names on it, so it can't be shared. But could there be an aggregate of data that is provided to say, you know, here's where we were last month in the original, these have been resolved, these are new, like, again, just numbers, not names or locations. Is that something that we can add?
I was under the impression that was going to be attached.
Should be updated spreadsheets that catalog the property issues.
Well, I didn't think we were allowed to.
No, they'll be, well, they're being shared with DHCD.
DHCD will get all that information.
They will get all that. Yes. I'm sorry, my misunderstanding.
That's all right.
Well,
only we can't keep it. It's just, yeah, I got you.
They have procedures in terms of protecting proprietary.
We'll see an update on the data form.
Okay, any other questions about that? Are we ready to move on?
I think so, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Rich.
Can we retrieve the spreadsheets?
Yeah, I can go by.
Yeah.
Last two red should be yellow.
Good color one, but color coding is only done on list installations, not on property restoration.
Okay, great.
Yes, I'll be there.
All right, the Valley 2022 update.
Okay,
Thanks, Rich.
thank you. Here you go, Rich. Let's see, Jason and I were able to attend an update from TJPDC on 22. There's a lot of middle mile infrastructure work going on in Albemarle County by Dominion Energy. And then the other partners, whether it's Appalachian Power or Rappahannock Electric Co-op, are also doing work to move the project forward. The good news that we had last Friday is that Firefly expects to make connections in the AEP and the Rappahannock Electric Co-op areas in the spring of 2023. Wanted to remind the Broadband Authority that the work that the Broadband Authority did coming up to this is prevalent because of the CVIC membership was supported by the Broadband Authority in 3 different ways. One through a CARES Act project that we did. Another is through one of our body applications with the Midway. So we provided support to get the Midway substation for Firefly up to date. And we recently have authorized our next tax grant incentive payment to CVSI. So the parent company of both CVIC and Firefly are receiving a tax grant for the efforts that they're doing in Albemarle County. There is a new project tracking page, and I sent this around separately. If anybody has questions about those, and Richie definitely pointed out that that's a great place to go and see the work that the Broadband Authority did, because of the projects that are listed out there. Some of the ones that are completed show that we were involved. Well, they don't show that the Broadband Authority was involved. It definitely gives you an indication of how much work Firefly has done in the county thus far.
I think most people will just be happy to see, is it coming to my neighborhood? Yeah, right. Not really so much with the Broadband Authority.
Yeah, and that is Mr. Henry asked earlier about how the notices get out on the Brightspeed work. Firefly is much different. They are taking interest through their website. So you have an ability, if you're going to be a Firefly customer or in a Firefly footprint, you have a way to sign up with them and they'll keep you involved. So we're somewhat divorced, I guess you would say, from the old way of where we're keeping track. In this particular case, Firefly is keeping track. The challenge we feel, and we're continuing to work on this particular challenge, is on that listing, they haven't broken out the Dominion Energy projects yet. So there's a large map that presents itself when you visit that page. Actually, I might be able to go to it, but I think I'll not do that right now. But if you go to the map, there are a number of what are yellow areas that haven't been named yet. And then based on the page later on down that page, they'll name each of those projects and start to at least give a guideline on what those areas, when they will be ready for servicing. And it's a 6-step process. So as they work through those processes, they'll give us updates on the 22 project.
So just to clarify, what I'm hearing is not all of the projects will start first.
Yes, that's exactly what you're hearing. Yes. And there's
how much we want my neighborhood to go first.
Right.
Not happening.
Yes, there's several projects that are already out there. With AEP in particular, that they've started and will be receiving service. It's in the southern Albemarle area, so a positive move that looks good. And Firefly is continuing to work on both their Midway and Red Hill substation. So a number of CVIC members in Albemarle County will be receiving service in the next 2 to 3 months, based on the good work that they're doing in the Whitehall, which is a substation that goes all the way from Crozet all the way to Boonesville and up to the Greene County border. So lots of Albemarle in that particular section will be activated in the next 2 to 3 months, significantly increasing the number of Firefly customers in Albemarle. So we're looking forward to a long-term relationship here, and we'll be back with a report in January. So updated report with hopefully better news, or not better news, but updated news. More news.
I want to call up, I appreciate very much that Firefly has established this website where you can track exactly what's happening in a really granular way, and that they're going to be starting to make connections in spring. That is faster than I expected that work to happen. And I've checked this website several times since we learned about the URL to be able to see updates as the work happens. This is great. This is going to save y'all a lot of trouble of people contacting you saying, what's up? They'll ask once and you'll give them the address, and then they're going to be able to know what's going on. This is a quality of life improvement, both for y'all, but also for members of the public who want to know what's going on. My parents asked me the other day, what's up? I was able to check and find out what's going on with them getting their connection. I just feel real good about this.
Yeah. I was having dinner with some friends out in Savannah who just got Firefly hooked up in the last couple of weeks, and quality of life improvement is exactly how they described it. Anyway, thanks, Mike.
No more questions there. We'll move on to the next guy. And 23, as you know, we applied as the broadband office with TJPDC for body 23, and the announcements are due tentatively by the end of December. So this generally will go through DHCD. DHCD will rank all of the applications that came through, and then they'll send the results to the governor's office, and the governor's office will make the announcement. So the tentative date.
To set expectations, though, we've seen this happen where the governor's office goes, great, we've got your award list, and we're going to wait for this event some point in January or later to actually make the announcement, so it's out of DHCD's hands. So we don't know when the announcements will be. Correct? Yeah.
Okay. And just to make sure I'm remembering this correctly, because of the amount of funding that's available and because of the significant needs in unserved parts of the state, you are pessimistic that we're going to get this funding. Is that right?
Pragmatic in our
Pragmatic, yes, pragmatic.
It should be noted, one of our the office's pending actions is decisions on some ARPA funding that we continue to have. It's possible in the event that this funding does not come through, that we'd be able to direct a significant portion of this project through existing ARPA funding. Whether it would not cover the entire body request, but it could certainly help nudge this project along.
Good to know.
Can we move from pragmatic to cautiously optimistic?
Yes. Well, we're optimistic that the work will be done. We're absolutely 100% optimistic on the work will be done. It's just the mechanism that it becomes a reality.
A significant concern in this particular project is that so if you look at the diagram, it's the orange portions. The red is the body 22 project. The orange portions are the body 23 application. The expectation would be that they will be building through those areas. However, the expectation would also be that they would fulfill body 22 installations prior to fulfilling what would effectively be private installations. By receiving this grant, it ensures that all of the people who will eventually be able to take advantage of the build out will be able to take advantage of it in line, because this would run concurrently with the body 22 award.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else on 23? And eventually we're going to be working on 24. So now what 24 will contain is yet to be seen, but the guidelines for 24 are being worked on by DHCD. And so they'll be coming out sometime in the spring. So
there's always tomorrow.
There's lots of good things going on. So next on our agenda,
Mr. Treasurer.
No changes from previous month, and would suggest this item and potentially some elements from the BAO report, we could move into a consent item in the future. And then if the board gets it in advance, look at it, if you have questions, we can talk to it, but it just seems a way we could help streamline the administration of this meeting a little bit. Yeah, especially when like the budget changes so infrequently. It might be just a lot of the things in your report too, Mike, that could be consent.
That makes a lot of sense. Would we need to change our rules of procedure, Richie, to create a consent agenda and move things to it? Which we could do.
We could do that.
Just not at this meeting.
Not at this meeting. We could do that in the future. And certainly there's enough flexibility to suspend rules in order to make those changes to the agenda.
Yes, it's more of a.
I think it's a.
Last week I attended a boards and commissions training for staff, and they talked a lot about how to streamline it.
Take mundane things off the table that we don't need to talk about.
The primary things was a lot of.
There's been a big change.
Yeah.
We should talk about this. No, I agree.
No one in there with me.
It's good training.
It was good training.
Good. We'll take that as an action to look at our next meeting.
Sure.
To rearrange our agenda for the future after that one. Thank you. That's good thought, Charlie. Next item. BAO. Do you guys have a preferred way to pronounce that?
Now.
Hey, I'm asking just BAAO is how you pronounce it. Okay.
Bravo, Adam, Oscar, is that, there we go. So two items to cover that are both exciting. First is an update on the ACP bridge and then the regional digital equity plan. So the ACP bridge, again, this is the $20 per month supplement to the FCC's Affordable Connectivity Program, which we've been working on for, I believe, a full year now. And it is launched with our first provider partner, Comcast. There will be a press release to that effect going out tomorrow morning, and we are planning and hoping for an event later in the winter. And the projections for this alone suggest that over 350 households are going to be able to be served in this initial cohort with expectations of growth, both of our overall ACP enrollment, but as well as enrollment in ACP Bridge. And our office continues to seek additional partners. If Rich had hung around, I would have gently nudged him that this would be a great thing for our largest rural provider at present to take advantage of, and we will continue to look both at wireline as well as wireless providers to enroll in this project. Any questions on that one?
No, it's great.
And then secondly, the regional digital equity plan. This is the coalition that we're building alongside a lot of community members. I didn't include that slide this time because it's getting a little crowded, which is great. We had our last meeting on November 30th, which I would like to now just extend. I would be really thrilled to extend an invitation to the Broadband Authority to attend. This last visit, we were able to discuss some plans for the spring. We were able to talk about some upcoming grants that we're going to be looking at, and we were able to hear from a group called Digital Durham that has been working in the digital equity space for 5 years. To cover briefly, in the springtime, we are going to have access to 2 cohorts of UVA planning students, one in the qualitative methods course and one in the quantitative methods course. And they're going to be working to provide us with some real just on the ground planning work. So the qualitative methods cohort is going to be working on some focus groups. We're going to be targeting different populations using our community partners as our access. And we're expecting to target 3 cohorts this time, but having as many as 6 focus groups to engage them. We're looking at options to do that digitally, which is fairly novel, but was a pathway that Digital Durham was able to do. They engaged 500 community members using just digital focus groups during the height of the pandemic. Really just incredible work that they were able to do. The expectation that a report would come out of that in May, and then we would actually be able to just follow that, that process and continue to do additional focus groups to engage the community further. And then the quantitative methods cohort is going to do much needed demographic analysis and start to look for correlations between areas that have poor internet and other demographic factors, as well as looking to perform a needs assessment using speed test and sentiment survey data. So this is basically taking what we've done in the county in a limited way and trying to expand it further to get more respondents to the survey from a broader population. And similarly, the reporting out for that will be in May. Digital Durham, again, we were able to speak to Gwen Weaver and Jennifer Etheridge, who are just two of several volunteers. And what was remarkable to hear about is that this group formed out of the community. So whereas what we're trying to do starts here in our office, in a municipality, they actually just started at the community level and have been building support that has translated into action by both the city of Durham and the county of Durham. And one of the things that they highlighted is that the first item in their digital equity plan was for both the city of Durham and the county of Durham to hire a digital equity manager to actually execute on the rest of their recommendations. And that is happening. They're currently hiring for that position in the city of Durham and are making plans for it in the county of Durham. Any questions on that one? The last one is a opportunity to do some ACP outreach. So outreach for our affordable connectivity program. Right now in the county, we have 1,600 households that are enrolled in ACP out of more than 8,200 households. The numbers for that are unknown in our neighbor municipality in the city and are unknown in different populations. And so one of the goals with our desire to engage is to get more data about how people are engaged with broadband and whether they're taking advantage of these opportunities. These grant and pilot programs are an opportunity to actually just directly engage these communities. The pilot programs, which are divided into two different lanes, give you access to the national verifier, which is used to confirm eligibility for the ACP. Having access to that tool would take the time for signing somebody up from hours and days down to minutes. You can just do it at the same in the same conversation. And so we're really eager to have access to that tool. Additionally, the grant funding, we would be looking to hire some digital navigators, which would actually be trained to do this work, going out into the community and helping people sign up for ACP and then getting them enrolled with a provider. And we would also be looking at a marketing effort to coordinate the work of the navigators, as well as put together PSAs, events, digital ads, and other material that's necessary to spread the word about ACP. Concurrently, obviously, spreading the word about ACP Bridge. Yes?
What is YH?
So the Your Home, Your Internet component is targeted at public housing, whereas the ACP Navigator component is targeted at other at-risk populations. And that divide creates a lot of complexity, which is one of the reasons why Kimberly Gardner from our grants team is going to be essential in helping us navigate this process, as well as the team from procurement, who we've already pulled in to help us in preparing for this.
Due date, January 9th.
Yep. Working through the holidays.
That's not a board of supervisors.
Any other questions on these? All right.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the strategic plan approval. The strategic plan changed since I sent out the last email on this a week or so ago. In that Trevor called my attention to the fact that the Board of Supervisors had updated their strategies and goals. And so I updated the reference in the the strategic plan to the broadband is referred to in those to anyway, fix that. And then notice just now a typo when my link is missing an underscore somewhere, but not material change. I trust everyone has had an opportunity to review the strategic plan. Are there any comments or concerns? Yes.
Chair, well, thank you. Could someone just help me better understand as a layperson who's not technical? Paragraph 4A on page 6 of 6.
I mean, it was getting towards the end of the thing, and why did we write that?
No, it's just, I'm not sure exactly what it means.
Okay, the beginning part of this is with regard to the Wireless Services Authorities Act,
right?
Which is the act under which we were created, and that act allows us to create our own company, run our own internet service, be an ISP, sell services. If we wanted to.
Right. And ABBA's main goal is not to do that.
And we were not, the Board of Supervisors, when they created us, said, we don't want you doing that. So we just write that down. It's a principle. However, we allow for the fact that there might have been, 40 people in the northwest corner of Albemarle County who there was no way to get there.
Right.
No one would provide service unless someone bought some dark fiber getting to them. We didn't want to close the door on that completely, but we were not systemically going to be in that business. We don't want to compete with ISPs.
So as a practical matter, what does that actually entail? The county to be this provider?
We don't want to do that.
Right.
Okay.
But it sounds like that's what we're saying. While not engaging in direct consumer service provisions, they could make ABBA an internet service provider.
Technically. So if we ended up buying a piece of dark fiber somewhere, or renting it from someone.
What is dark fiber?
Dark fiber is what Dominion is running right now for Central Virginia. They're running fiber on their lines, and then Firefly is going to put internet service on that, and one end it's called off. Yeah, that's called.
Meaning there's no light running.
Yeah.
No light.
Nobody's putting any signal on it. You put the signal.
Like the dark.
No, yeah. It's a valid, understandable. I mean, but it's just if there was. This is very hypothetical.
Right.
So if there were
those isolated areas, we may do that, not actually create an ISP, but facilitate the delivery.
Exactly.
That's what I wanted.
There's a potential for this in a very minute scale. And technically we'd be serving the internet to those people, which would make us an ISP.
Got it. Okay.
But we don't want to be an ISP.
Can I throw a hypothetical? And it's kind of Robert's
here.
It's schools are doing this work, and a hypothetical might be, we get to this point where we can't get this small neighborhood served by any ISPs. Schools have a line going by it. We say, can we contract with you to deliver that service? I'm making it up, but I think that provision, maybe that puts us in the ISP business. Maybe
not, but it's really sort of a middleman, if you will.
Yeah.
Strategically, this was the wiggle room that left the door cracked open.
That's all question. I just wasn't sure exactly what that meant.
But no, I thank you.
I liked it. I thought it's a good last resort.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I understood what it really meant. Okay,
No,
thank you.
no, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I think there are good improvements, and I hadn't really realized how far we'd drifted from that strategic plan because of all the reasons we should have done that. And I'm glad to have that both catch up with us, but then also be forward looking, particularly to Donna's point about where we're going. So I enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable process to actually sit down and think about, wait, what are we doing and how is that different from what we have been doing? And I'm glad you instigated it.
It's useful to get us all on the same page about where we are and where we're going.
I think it's a great document. I'm certainly ready to approve it. I would ask as a future agenda item if we could invite schools to come in and give us an update on the work. It's been quite a while since we've gotten an update on the work the schools are doing, and so that that's one of the items in our partnering that we call out. But I just would love to see
no, you're absolutely right.
And what are our opportunities?
It's a huge constituency of the broadband in the county, and arguably one of the most important.
So not urgency to it at all, but just sometime first quarter maybe. Right.
I think it's a good idea. Anything else? Then I would move to approve. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, strategic plan with one or two little minor typo corrections is approved.
Good job.
Thank you very much. And that takes us to new business. Does anyone have any new business to bring before the authority?
Not new business, but just wanted to clean up. Do we need to take an action back to the old business 6 alpha and the corrective action plan memo to DHCD? I'm looking at what it's written under your signature with the the attachment. Did we
from Brightspeed? Yeah.
No, Richie, do we need to take a formal action to authorize Bucky to
Thought there was a request, but a formal action would be good. I thought there was the
I'd
question.
asked for feedback.
Yeah.
Took the you gave some comments at that time. But then I went ahead and signed the thing. I'm happy
That's
to,
enough.
to
Okay.
get a vote on
no,
this.
we can do a quick motion and a second and a vote.
move to authorize Chair Walsh to sign the memo on Alba's behalf?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Any other business? Well, let's draw this out for a little bit. Well, then I'd like to move to adjourn the meeting. Any opposed? Very good. Thank you all very much. And we will see each other again fourth Wednesday in January. January 25th. There we go.
I didn't want to say anything during the meeting because I didn't want to